Hello, everyone. This is Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hello, everyone. This is Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I just did a panel with Holly Seeliger and Iban. Uh, you know, I was going to do this in a video, but I said, fuck, we'll do it live, like Bill O'Reilly. I have to show that clip one day. The Bill O'Reilly clip is awesome. It's awesome. After speaking with Holly, I wanted to do a video. They attacked her. This video is not. This is not necessarily about fairness. This isn't about. I'm biased on this. I'm intentionally biased on this. This is an attack on independent media. Period. The things that he's doing, and it's not just Holly. It's HA. It's all these guys. I'm gonna show you the picture of an asshole. This is a picture of an asshole. This guy's name is Gred Kesich. He works for the Portland Herald. Gred Kesich. Picture of an asshole. That's him right there. When you look up asshole in the dictionary, this is the guy you're going to see. Now, here's the thing. He wrote an article essentially bashing her, going after her, and then putting this question of, should this be the person who you want in your school district? The things he went on after had to do with her take on certain issues. One particular one being the Seth Rich case, whether Seth Rich was the leaker. Let's take it from a different angle. What is truth? What is truth? What is truth? Human beings, we have this very bad tendency to want to be able to nail down this right here is true. Doesn't matter if it's true for real. This is true. I'm uncomfortable with the ambiguity of my existence, so I'm going to make a god in the sky. I'm going to give him powers. I'm going to make him just like me. He's a man. He's angry. He gets jealous. He gets vengeful. All those things, just like me. You mean that God that's supposed to be God of the universe, those temper tantrums, and he created you purely for the sake of damnation? Some people, I mean, if you're making the case that some people go to hell, then God had to know those people are going to hell. When is your birthday? When were you born? What time were you born? Are you sure you're born at the time? I was born at 6:05 a.m., August 31st, 1977. Am I sure? Like, is it possible that the doctor put me out a minute before, a minute after? Maybe. How would I ever know? How would I ever know? I don't even know with precision my own birth date. I have to err on the side of this is the exact time and date that I was born. I believe the doctor, he wrote it down at that particular time, but do I know for certain? No. Do I know for certain? No. Calculate all the things in your life that you know for certain. Now, if you're being honest with yourself, that list is minor. Many of the things that you encounter in your particular life, those things aren't necessarily certainties. Those things are things that you take as certain. I sit in this chair. I assume that this chair is going to hold my weight. I must take that as an act of faith almost, that this chair is going to hold my weight. I take it that when I hit the light switch, it's going to come on. Am I certain? No. Do I think so? Yes. Now, take this to events that are beyond these simplistic things that are monstrous and magnificent. The towers come down on 9/11. Are you certain? Are you absolute certain that that's what took place? I get you can believe the narrative that the government put out, but are you certain? I'm getting at this point that this idea of certainty is somewhat of a non-starter. There are things that you may believe, but the things that you believe that are certain should be very, very few. There are very few things that you yourself have direct experience with that you can say is certain. So, yes, I was born. That's certain. Yes, I exist. That's certain. Do I know somebody else exists? No, I don't. I take it with an act of faith. I don't even know that anything exists outside of myself because I can hear my thoughts. I can't hear anybody else's. It's an act of faith. It's belief. There's no certainty in that. We take it with a certain grain of salt because we need to take it that way in order to function in our particular society. Let's keep going with that. So we're dropped into an existence. Plop. We're baby. We grew up in that existence. Because we grew up in existence, we assume that that existence is real. That's what we call real. But what does that even mean when we're talking about the concept of real? If I'm in a dreamscape and I'm interacting with the characters, that's an experience to me. I may learn something from that particular experience. Is that experience real? It's real to me. Happened to me. I experienced it. I interacted with something. I gained something experience from that particular thing. It's real to me. What's real? What's experience? What's certain? And what other things that you yourself can nail down as being certain in your life? Take that to massive events. There are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Are you certain? Yes, we're certain. We're going in. We're certain. There are weapons of mass destruction. There were no more weapons of mass destruction. The burning of the Reichstag building in Germany. Are we certain that there were dissidents that were going after Germany? No, we're not certain. At the time, yes, we're certain, meaning Germany was certain. After the fact, not so much. It's very likely that that was a false flag. Was the Gulf of Tonkin? Did that happen? Yes, at the time, they were certain. Some took place. Vietnam did something to one of our ships. We got to go in. We got to go in. That wasn't right either. That wasn't right either. Certainty is ridiculous. At best, you can err on the side of caution, but human beings have this nasty tendency to need to be certain about their events. And when they're not, when they take themselves on as being certain, they say, this thing happened exactly this particular way. I am certain that this thing happened. At that moment, they're lying through their teeth because there's no way to know. There's no way to know. If you're calling somebody a conspiracy theorist on something, then you are lying through your teeth because there's no way for you to know. I mean, it's one thing for you to say, I think something happened. It's another thing for you to say, I'm certain that something happened. I'm so certain that something happened, I'm just going to attack somebody else for that particular case. Now, this is not an absolute. There are ranges to this. But certainly in cases where you're told a narrative, why should you just take that narrative as the absolute truth of God? Why? The government told you something. Does the government have a propensity to lie? Yes, the government lies. The government lies. Did the report that they did on 9/11, did that settle the issue? Meaning, did they give a thorough analysis of those things, and did they take those people into consideration? Instead of calling those people a conspiracy theory, maybe you should have a conversation with those people. If your goal is to figure out what took place, then you would talk to the people who are critics of your narrative of the story. They're not crazy for being critics of your narrative of the story. They're just being people. They're inquiring. They're not necessarily taking a narrative. Calling somebody a conspiracy theory is a pejorative. The goal is to dissuade them from having that conversation. It's like somebody being overweight and you're chastising them for being overweight. The goal of the person being, you being overweight is not fit into my reality of the way I think things should be. So I'm going to chastise you and I'm going to bug you about it. I'm going to call you dirty and nasty names until you lose that weight. That has nothing to do with the person that's overweight. That has everything to do with the person who's castigating that person. Same thing with the asshole over here. That has nothing to do with Holly. It has everything to do with him needing a certain amount of certainty and conformity in regards to the stories. Now, again, this is not an absolute, so don't misunderstand me. This is not a flat earth. And there are things where you can take tests on, where you can get this idea of the physical environment. If we're talking about physical matter reality, where we're like, yes, gravity to some degree exists. Yes, relativity for the most part exists. Quantum mechanics exists. You can do these things in laboratories. You can come up with a solution and say, yes, in physical matter reality, these things are principles of a particular reality. You can do that. But understand, that's just understanding your reality the way you find it. That's what reality is. All I'm saying is there are things that you, for the most part, can know, or at the very least, somewhat believe just from study, experiment, and everything else. But does the government have a propensity to lie? Yes, governments lie. Governments lie all the time. So if governments lie all the time, why should you just automatically take their narrative of the case? You should be critical. You should be critical. You should be questioning. You should be one of those people who say, I don't take this just because you gave me that particular story for me to take. That is the picture of an asshole. Not just an asshole. That's a picture of a conceited asshole who needs people to believe a particular thing. Even if you say, I don't necessarily believe the things that she believes, what does that have to do with you doing a smear campaign to try to tell people, hey, this woman is loony and this woman is in that particular thing? She's not loony. You can have a conversation with her. She's perfectly sane. The difference is she doesn't take your narrative. That's literally the only difference. The attack on this is you're not following the line that we told you to follow. Get your ass in line. Get your ass in line, or else I'm going to smear you and I'm going to chastise you until you fall in line. And if you don't fall in line, I'm going to call you a conspiracy theorist. And I'm going to use my little platform in my little magazine or in my little newspaper to berate you and say that, hey, this woman isn't towing the narrative that all of us have agreed to be the narrative. How does he know of these things? How does he know these things? Who's whispering in his ear? He's taking the line. He's essentially taking the mainstream line of argument. Yes, Russia hacked us. Yes, Seth Rich had nothing to do with it. Yes, I know Julian Assange said Seth Rich was the leaker, but no, I don't pay attention to Julian Assange. This is what we're dealing with. The reason why I bring up this question of what's truth is because ultimately that's the conversation we're having. What is truth? What is truth? There is fake news. There are things that people make up. People make up all sorts of things because they have a particular incentive in making those things up. I'd argue that that newspaper, media also has incentives for taking particular positions, whether it's the Russian narrative that they started up with in the beginning and continued with, even though they found no link between Trump and Russia. They still play with this narrative and they still include Trump in this particular narrative. You're not crazy for saying, until you make a link between Trump and Russia, I don't believe it. That's not crazy. That's sane as can be. And up to this point, nobody, not even Comey, has made this link between Trump and Russia. Also, into the minutiae of the case, the CIA had hacking tools. Are you telling me that no other country has the capacity to have the hacking tools that the CIA had? The CIA had the potential or had the capacity to mimic other hacks from other countries, meaning they had the capacity to make something look like it was from somewhere else. Are you telling me that other countries or other actors don't have the same capacity? Why do you believe that the CIA is somehow unique among the world? Why? Why do you believe that? Those hacking tools even were released. So where's your certainty? Why didn't the DNC? Why? Explain it to me. Explain it to me, Gred Kesich, Mr. Certain. Why didn't the DNC give their computers, their servers, over to the FBI for investigation? Why did they give it to a company that they themselves were paying, meaning that company had a financial or fiscal interest to do essentially what the DNC said? Why? 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 The DNC has a vested interest in carrying a Russian narrative. That is true. That's true. Immediately after the election, Hillary Clinton comes out, people calling her. I'm sorry you lost that election. I know it has to hurt. It has to burn. You lost a reality show host. The guy has orange. You lost to that guy. She gets tired of hearing those phone calls. And she comes up with this Russian narrative and screams it at the top of her lungs and gets all these other Democrats to fall in line screaming at the top of their lungs. You know what you couldn't get those Democrats to scream at the top of their lungs about? Actual health care. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Obama didn't do it. The Democrats didn't do it. They had absolute power in that sense, at least absolute power within the political apparatus. House, filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, and the presidency. And you had a president who had just got the Nobel Peace Prize and came in on a platform of progressivism. A same candidate who chastised Hillary Clinton for putting in a mandate, and the moment he got in office, put in a mandate forcing you to buy healthcare from an insurance company, from a private enterprise. Is the point of healthcare healthcare? Why do I have to go through a private enterprise? Why are those leeches still a part of the system? What I'm getting at is that this idea of truth is somewhat sketchy and slippery at best. If you're going to go with this idea that the Democratic Party, look, the point I'm making is they screamed at the top of their lungs about Russia. They got that into the newspaper. They got that into the press. And this party, who's supposed to be feckless and weak and can't get anything done in normal circumstances, was able to, in unison, scream about Russia. They couldn't scream about healthcare. They couldn't get Medicare for all. That's off the table. That's too difficult to do. Russia, we can do that. But why do you think they can do that? They can do that because they have a vested interest in having that conversation. They don't want to say what's wrong with their party. Why did we lose 50 million members? Why did we cheat Bernie Sanders in the primaries? Why do people think that we're such a disgusting party? Why do people hate our goddamn guts? Why couldn't we get out there and explain to people what we represent and who we were? And when we were asked the question, what do you represent? Why can't we answer that question? And why is that question so difficult to answer? Why? Why? I'm questioning. I'm one of the questioners. I want to know. I want to know. You can scream about Russia because you have a vested interest in screaming about Russia. You want to take a particular narrative because any other narrative, if you're being honest, means you need to interrogate the problems of your particular party. So yes, the Democratic Party has a vested interest in screaming Russia. That's the narrative they want to go with. That's the narrative that the media wants to go with because they follow this particular line. And let's be honest, they hate Donald Trump with a passion. I don't like him either, but I'm not making shit up in order to go after him, while at the same time completely ignoring other stories that matter. The Democratic Party isn't talking about anything but Russia. That's the truth of the matter, and that's sad and pathetic. That's absolutely sad. They lost the election by trying to put all this on Trump, and they're doing the exact same thing now with Russia. Point I'm getting at is truth is sketchy. And if the person is putting out a narrative, they have a vested incentive in putting out a particular narrative, then how do you know it's true? I'm incentivized to tell you something. I'm incentivized to tell you something, whether it's true or not, because it benefits me. How do you know it's true? What is truth? What is truth? How do you know? Prove it to me. Be certain. The only thing that you can ever really show me is a news article or something else. An article crafted by somebody with a vested incentive of getting something across that may or may not be true. You can err on the side of one thing, but this idea of truth, sketchy. 2 + 2 is 4. Yes, that's true. Whether or not the buildings came down in 9/11 the exact way they said, that's sketchy. I don't know that. I don't know that. I err on the side of, yes, those airplanes hit the building. But do I know that? No, I don't. And it's a lie to say that you do. You err on the side of caution, or you err on the side of a particular position. But this idea of I'm certain, I'm so certain that I can call somebody else a conspiracy theory because they take a different position than myself is fucking ridiculous. If the position that you're taking is not based in some kind of logic or science, meaning if it's not 2 + 2 is 4, meaning some logical process. When I'm doing software, when I'm writing code, the logical process either works or it doesn't. It's either going to throw an error because there's a problem with it, or it's either going to work. That is truth. If that thing works, it's truth. But understand the underlying principle of that is mathematics, which means there are laws that govern whether or not that's true or not. I can evaluate it. I can't evaluate a story coming from some organization that has a vested interest in telling me something that may or may not be true, that seeks to present a certain interest. I either err on the side of belief or not. In Comey's testimony, he comes out saying that they were putting out fake news. The New York Times, the gray lady, putting out fake news. This guy is attacking Holly Seeliger. He's attacking her. And he's attacking her in a way saying that the things that she's saying is completely bupkis and bogus, and she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's making shit up. The question is, how do you know? I get it that you err on the side of a particular position, but if you're going to take this thing that she's saying, all these things are conspiracy theories, all of them. And look, I disagree with her on some of these things. That's besides the point. She's in the media. When it comes to a point of, are you going to stand up for healthcare? She's going to be there. Are you going to stand up for Medicare for all? Are you going to stand up for free tuition? Are you going to stand up for a better life in this particular country for the majority of the people in this country? The answer is yes. She will be standing right by my side and dragging this country forward. That's what she would be. You think this asshole, Kasich, is going to be standing by your side when you're trying to get those things done and you're trying to move this country forward? Let's take a look further into Kasich. I read this article. In an article where it gets rather ridiculous. So this part. In a recent episode of the Green Party members laughed off the notion that it's just the right wing who thinks the Democrats have blood on their hands. She assured viewers that there are plenty of people on the left who also believe that a hit squad knocked off Rich to keep him quiet. That's a fact. That's a fact. She assured her viewers that there are plenty of people on the left that also believe that. Yes, that's a fact. What are you talking about? That's a fact. It's a fact. You're making it as if she's making shit up. That's a fact. Whether you believe that or not, whether it's true or not, there are people on the left who full well believe it. That's not just the right wing. They're trying to make it act like it's Fox News and try to make it somewhat of pejorative as if nobody else is paying attention to the story. Democrats are isolated in the story. They're consistently telling you that the story is quote unquote debunked. Why do you have to keep telling me that? Why do you have to keep telling me that? Why do you have, if this story is so debunked and your narrative is so enshrined as the absolute truth of the matter, why do you have to keep repeating the fact that it's debunked? You say that only as a pejorative to try to make people not talk about the story. The story isn't going away. You have the right wing and you have the left wing looking at this story saying, wait a minute, what you're saying doesn't fully make sense. And I'm disbelieving what you're telling me right now. Now, you may be right, but I don't know that. And you don't know that. That's the point I'm getting at. They keep saying that conservative media is touting this Seth Rich conspiracy. No. Bernie Sanders supporters are talking about this too. That's true. Seeliger said Seth Rich was a Bernie Sanders supporter and he could see the writing on the wall. Unfortunately, he was also naive and believed that he could change the Democratic Party from inside. And because of that, I believe he paid the ultimate price. I have no idea whether that's true or not. That may or may not be the case. I don't take that step that she takes with that. My step is only Seth Rich could have been a leaker. Seth Rich could have been whacked and knocked off just by being in a particular neighborhood in a random time. I have no clue. And to some degree, that's more of a police matter. It's irrelevant to me. At least for right now, it's irrelevant to me. What's relevant to me is Seth Rich the leaker? And if so, why is Julian Assange continuously pointing to Seth Rich? And why is he setting himself on fire trying to get across this idea that Seth Rich may be the leaker? Beyond that, of the 7 billion people on this planet, the one person who would know who the leaker is Julian Assange. And Julian Assange continuously is putting out Seth Rich as the leaker, including putting up a reward for his killer, including putting out tweets in regards to Seth Rich in his paper. Now, even if you make the case, and I'm not even going to say that, I'm just going to say if Seth Rich is the leaker, and look, you tell me what's more likely. Somebody who worked for the DNC, got his hands on information from the DNC, passed that information on to WikiLeaks about the DNC from the place that he actually worked. If that's true, then the next stone that you stepped on saying that they may have to have something to do with it is not bizarre or crazy at all. And any police investigation would have to take that into account if he is the leaker. My point is, this is not a crazy narrative of the case. This is her theory of the case. I think it may take the extra step when I don't necessarily see it yet, but she's not crazy for making this theory of the case, particularly if you go with the idea that Seth is the leaker. And I've seen nothing that tells me that Seth is not necessarily the leaker. Nothing. I have no proof one way or the other. I err on the side of Julian Assange, but notice I am erring on the side of somebody, not necessarily taking it as the word of God, nor am I saying that you're a conspiracy theorist because you believe in this Russian narrative. There's a difference in those things. One position is honest. Your position is of a goddamn liar. That's the truth of the matter. By now, we have all become inured to the label fake news because it gets slapped on every story that leads to a conclusion that someone doesn't like. But we live in an era where there is such thing as real fake news. There was always real fake news. You act like that's something new. They always put out yellow journalism and stuff. Like I said, the New York Times recently put out fake news. When the Washington Post and the New York Times was putting out stories for the Iraq War, those were fake news. They were leading up to a war. They got 1 million Iraqis killed, pushing one story after another, pushing forward this war. Where was the investigative journalism when they were trying to murder people abroad? Where? What was this liberal magazine, this liberal newspaper that was supposed to be putting out this journalism to rebuff the narrative that the government was putting out? You're telling me that the government is putting out a narrative in the same way the government is putting out a narrative right now. Yes, it's the Democratic Party, but whatever. They're putting out a narrative right now saying something. And in the same way they put out that narrative for 9/11, or the same way they put out the narrative that got those people into Iraq and murdered all of those people. And you're telling me that right off the bat, your first instinct is, yes, I'm just going to trust what the government is telling me. Okay. But we live in an era where there is such thing as fake news, false stories that are manufactured either for propaganda or for profit. They can swing elections and drive public opinion just like genuine journalism because readers choose to believe them. There is such thing as bias. meaning a person wants something to be true. So, it's like their reality box of sorts. And so there are certain stories that their eyes catch. Here's the thing, though. He just gave you a certain amount of fake news. This is Stanford. Fake news didn't swing that election. Fake news didn't swing that election. I can't pronounce that guy's name. Ginzald and Alcott showed that social media wasn't the major source of political news for most Americans in 2016. Only 14% say they relied on Facebook and other social media sites as their most important source of election coverage. Social media was important, but not dominant source of news in the run-up to the election, the authors write. Television, it turns out, remains the go-to place for political news. In the 3 months before the election, pro-Trump fabricated stories tracked by the researchers were a total of 30 million times, nearly quadruple the number of pro-Clinton shares. Even so, his name, Ginzald and Alcott find that most widely circulated hoaxes were seen by only a small fraction of Americans, and only half of those who saw the false stories believed it. Even if a voter recalled a fake story and believed what it said, the story would need to have been surprisingly persuasive to have changed their vote. For fake news to have changed the outcome of the election, a single fake news story would need to have convinced about 0.7% of Hillary Clinton voters and non-voters who saw it to shift their votes to Trump, a persuasion rate equivalent of seeing 37 television campaign ads, the author concludes. Fake news did not swing the election. Gred just lied. He just lied. He lied in pursuit of attacking somebody else. This is confirmation bias. He wanted to believe that fake news had some swing in the election, and so he put this in his article in order to attack Holly. Now, whatever you may think of the stories that come up in regards to what she may or may not believe, I find that stuff to be somewhat irrelevant to me. What I care about is, what is your position on healthcare? What is your position on education? What is your position on poverty? What is your position on the universal basic income, federal jobs guarantee? What is your position on things that will substantially deal with climate change? What is your position on the green energy revolution? These things, this is minutia. The bigger issues, the things that matter, are the things that directly affect the lives of each and every person, not just in this country, but on this planet. And yes, you can dig into minutia to try to attack somebody, but ask yourself, is she the person? Or is she putting out information? But let me say it this way. Is she putting out a perspective that would change this country for the better? Yes or no? What the hell is Greg putting out? A snarky ass article attacking somebody who's actually trying to do something for the better. When we go on YouTube, when we make the decision to come on YouTube, for whatever reason, whatever is the thing that's pushing us to do it, we show ourselves, our fears, the things we're afraid of, the things that we believe in, the things we don't believe in, our logical failings, just our failings as human beings, our virtues. Now, because those things are exposed in the open, those things are susceptible to attack. We accept those things because we want to, some measure, try to change things, eat for the better. We accept the fact that we will be attacked, right or wrong. We accept that. It comes with the territory. But we also hope in that we can somehow push the narrative to a different direction, that we can dig our hands into what this country is, whatever this thing is that is this country, and drag this country to a progressive direction. That dragging has always come from the left, whether you're talking about King, X, even if you're talking about Abraham Lincoln with the slavery, whether you're talking about women's rights, whether you're talking about gay rights, those things have always come from the left. That's us. That's us. That's Holly. That's me. That's Sim Black. That's H.A. Goodman. That's the people who are being attacked right now. We don't follow their narrative. They don't like that we don't follow their narrative. They're attacking her because she doesn't toe their particular line. They can go fuck themselves. They can go fuck themselves. She's doing what she needs to do. Whatever she believes is whatever she believes. I care about when it comes to the bigger issues, the issues that Gred, the asshole Kesich, doesn't talk about, or I severely doubt he talks about. And by the way, Kesich's magazine, his rag, that rag has been bought by somebody else. Now, you tell me, if you have somebody who's a ton of money and they buy your magazine, listen to this article. A new owner of Maine Today Media completes acquisition, rehires majority of employees. You don't say. Maine Today Media announced Monday that MTM Values LLC, a company controlled by Maine financier Donald Sussman, completed its sale of the media company assets to MTM Acquisition, a company controlled by Brower, for an undisclosed price. A majority of the sale proceeds are expected to retire the company's remaining debt. It publishes Portland Press Herald, the paper of Gred Kesich, Morning Sentinel. Well, we don't care about the other ones. We're talking about Portland Press Herald. We owe tremendous gratitude to Donald Sussman for enabling us to rebuild the quality of our journalism and the financial foundation of MTM, D. Sisto said in prepared statement. With Reed's experience in media, marketing, and commercial printing, we add more expertise to our organization. We can imagine a better outcome, and we are thrilled. The history of local ownership continues. Maine Today Media said Brower's plan is to build a solid foundation established over the last 3 years by Sussman, who invested $13 million into the company and worked to set the company up for long-term sustainability. The company added that Brower wanted the company to continue its exceptional investigative and watchdog reporting. Now you tell me, this guy invested millions of dollars into this newspaper. Do you believe that this quote-unquote exceptional investigative watchdog reporting, you tell me, do you believe that this investigative watchdog reporting is going to do anything that would adversely affect that particular guy's interests? Meaning, whatever other companies that guy is owning, whatever thing that guy is doing, do you honestly believe that that particular newspaper is going to do anything at all, that would adversely affect that particular company, even if that company is doing something ghastly and monstrous? No. What is the fiscal incentive in that case? This guy gave us money. This guy keeps us active. So yes, we're going to allow this guy to do what he does, and we're not necessarily going to mess around with this guy. This is a paper. This is a rag that Greg works for. Does the paper expose that they've been bought by a particular guy? And does the paper expose, for the most part, that there's a financial conflict of interest? And let me explain what I mean further. So this guy, Sussman, the plutocrat, the blue-collar plutocrat with a heart of gold that just wanted media to continue, that guy. Susskind, wait a minute, I did something wrong. Sussman has a hedge fund, and his hedge fund gave $21 million to Hillary Clinton's super PAC. That's amazing. Hedge fund manager Donald S. Sussman, the same Sussman that essentially put millions into Greg's newspaper, his rag, the newspaper that's supposed to be commissioned with watchdog journalism and going after people and being earnest and honest and independent and not being scared to take on the big guys. That newspaper, the guy who gave all those millions of dollars to the newspaper, invested $21 million until the Hillary Clinton election campaign. He might as well burn the money on the White House lawn. She lost. Hedge fund manager Donald S. Sussman has given a total of $21 million to top super PAC supporting Hillary Clinton, putting him on track to be Democratic nominee's biggest political backer of the cycle. In an interview with the Washington Post, Sussman said he gave priority to USA $6 million in September and another $2 million this month, bringing his total to $21 million. So this guy's a Democrat. This guy has a vested interest in doing things and advocating things that function for the Democratic Party. Gave him $21 million. That's a lot of money to give to anybody, let alone to a candidate that failed. But the point I'm getting at is the conflict of interest of a newspaper that's supposed to be independent and supposed to hold power accountable. That is the point of news. So if the point of news is to be the fourth wall of sorts, it's supposed to be the watchdog of government. It's supposed to go after government. It's supposed to be independent and fierce and give the people information that those people need in order to keep their government accountable. If you're giving a candidate $21 million, meaning you have a vested interest in that candidate, otherwise you wouldn't give her $21 million, and you're giving a newspaper millions of dollars, is the newspaper going to bite the hand that feeds them? That's a massive conflict of interest. That's a massive conflict of interest. You should have on every newspaper that you write that this person has donated X amount of money to the Hillary Clinton campaign in addition to donating X amount of money to us. So at the very least, they know what they're dealing with when they're reading that particular newspaper. That's a massive conflict of interest. I'm not saying Greg wrote that article because that newspaper has been bought by somebody who's a Democrat. I'm not saying it. There's no link there between that. I'm just making this point that this idea of truth, that he's pretending that he's the bearer of truth, is insanely ridiculous. He doesn't know what truth is. And this newspaper, there's no reason to believe that this newspaper is going to be printing out news that's quote unquote true. Understand, media, news, it's not just what they tell you, it's also the things they don't tell you. The things that they don't tell you are often more important than the things they actually tell you. Are they going to have a conversation about class? Are they going to have a conversation about half the country being in poverty? Are they going to have a conversation about us murdering all these people abroad? During the terrorist attack after 9/11, did they have a conversation about why we were attacked? They didn't have that conversation. Did they have a conversation that we overthrew Iran? Did we have the conversation that we were dicking around in the Middle East? They didn't have those conversations. No, we were attacked. We need to hit somebody back. It didn't necessarily matter why we were attacked. We were just attacked. We need to go and murder a bunch of people. The media didn't do their goddamn job. But because they didn't do their job, 1 million Iraqis are dead. I'd argue that not only did they not do their job, they assisted in what narrative that the government was putting out. If they're going to assist in a narrative back then that murdered 1 million Iraqis, destabilized a particular region, and in no way after that happened did the media come around and say, holy shit, look at what took place and look at our responsibility in that. They didn't do that. They never had that come to Jesus moment. Ultimately, they would have conversations about, we have this many troops that are injured. We don't have the conversation about how many people we killed and murdered that didn't do anything to us. What the media doesn't tell you is almost and more important than what they tell you. And the fact that this guy is on this particular paper, he's talking about investigative journalism. I'm sure he laughed to himself when that was written. There is no way that they are ever going to do a story attacking his interests, meaning they are biased just by the virtue of the model that they're going with. Truth, real truth. Truth meaning, are you telling me something that I need to know to materially help me understand my world and to make decisions on it? If you're hiding stuff from me because somebody is paying you to hide stuff from me, then no, you're not telling me the truth. You're obfuscating the truth. You're lying. You're giving me minutiae of information that doesn't necessarily help me navigate my world. That's the point I'm getting at. Media in this country toes that line. They toe that line. Media in this country is massively distrusted. They're distrusted because the things that they give you are often either skewed a particular way. If you're watching CNN, CNN is mind-numbing. You want to hit yourself in the face with a hammer. I can't watch it. You've seen me lose my shit watching CNN because of the things that they're saying. It's insane. He's attacking Holly only because she's not towing their narrative. I'm making the point that they have no reason, nobody has any reason per se to tow their narrative. You failed on a massive level when you went into a country that had nothing to do with it. These newspapers towed the line that got us into a country that killed, murdered 1 million people. And at no point did those newspapers or anything else come back and have stories saying we shouldn't did it. How many newspaper articles were we talking about the drone wars, where they're murdering 90% of civilians? At that point, you're not even murdering terrorists, you're murdering civilians. Now, you would think that there would be a news article every day talking about Obama's murdered civilians, Obama's murdered civilians, Donald Trump is murdering civilians. Donald Trump is in one country after the next. Obama is in one country after the next. They're doing illegal wars. If it does, it's rare. This news, this media is ridiculous. Why doesn't this guy write a story about how the media itself doesn't give you the full narrative of events to allow you to have context to understand your world? Why is he picking on Holly? Why is he picking on Holly? Are the bigger events oblivious to him? Are he just unaware of those bigger events? Or is he just content to focus in the minutia? I suspect he's content to focus in the minutia. I suspect his job is minutia. He adds nothing to the equation. He's there to be snarky and to be an asshole. Well, congratulations. You've been an asshole. Your job has been fulfilled. Holly, keep doing what you're doing. They wouldn't be attacking independent media if independent media didn't have a voice. They understand that guy had to buy them out because their newspaper were failing, just like the other newspapers across the country were failing. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. You couldn't support yourself based upon your own enterprise. So you had to have somebody buy you out so they can turn you into some propaganda rag. And I'm saying a propaganda rag because, again, you're not putting out stories that's going to directly affect the power that bought you. In the same way that politicians are not going to bite the hand that feeds them, in the same way that the media in that particular in Washington is not going to bite the hand that feeds them. All these things are bought, cash run through this entire system. But you want to hit a lefty. You want to hit somebody who's beneath you. Good job. She's not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere. And she has a massive amount of audience that's built with each video, each word, each syllable that comes out of her mouth. There's an audience member that's created. What about you? Your paper was failing. You had to be bailed out by a plutocrat. She's not being bailed out by a plutocrat. She's getting audience members to stand and listen to what she's saying because they believe that what she's saying is for the most part true. While you being bought, at the very least your paper being bought, does not have that level of credibility. If you take issue with people not believing your narrative, that issue is with you. The issue is not with her. If you have an issue with credibility, that's because the credibility was lost from one failure after the next in regards to media. That's not her fault. That's your fault. You can say all you want about her being crazy conspiracy theorist, anything else. She just has a different theory of the case. It's not that her theory is crazy. It's not that her theory is wrong. It's just she looks at the world and realizes this world is ambiguous. They're telling me something, but they're telling me something that I have no way to know. Flesh to bone. It's true. Greg believes he's awesome because he takes the narrative of mainstream media. Good job, Greg. You're a robot. She doesn't. She's a thinker. She's a dreamer. Dreamers are the people who get shit done. At the very least, they're the people who move this country. So, Holly, don't change. Don't change a goddamn thing. Be brave and be bold. When you saw that this guy had all his money put behind him, that's just competition. That's just competition. You're accruing an audience. You're bringing people to your side. Yes, it's slow. Yes, it's painstaking. But yes, your subscriber count will rise. And you would still be attacked. You have 30,000 subscribers, 40,000 subscribers, and you will still be attacked. It used to. It's going to happen often. That doesn't matter. Still, do your thing. Represent your constituents. Be you. Be you. If you find data that changes your opinion, then change your opinion based on the data. But we all need to kind of recognize certainty is nowhere to be found. We err on the side of one thing or the next. I don't have to believe everything she believes. At the very least, I can respect the fact that she looks at it and says, yeah, I'm uncertain. I'm uncertain. So I'll leave it at that. All right, guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, write, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon. Thank you.